The final nail in the coffin of the Spanish Empire's decline would be the 30 Years' War, and would see the French army overtake Spain as the dominant land power in continental Europe.
Wow. The War of Spanish Succession.
On November 1st, 1700, the sickly and childless King Charles II of Spain died, bringing an end to almost 2 centuries of Habsburg family rule over the Spanish Empire. The question of Charles's succession was a hotly debated topic in the royal courts of Europe, and ultimately boiled down to a contest between 2 of Europe's most powerful royal houses, the Habsburgs of Austria and the Bourbons of France. Whichever family gained the Spanish throne.
I've always wondered why the War of Spanish Succession even happened, and the details of it. This is a conflict that I know absolutely nothing about, by the way. All I know is that Charles was a severely disabled inbred kid, and everyone knew that he was eventually gonna, kick the bucket, and started planning for it. That's all I know.
Would reign over not only Spain itself, but also her vast and rich overseas empire. In 1701, this dynastic contest between the Habsburgs and Bourbon over Spain's throne would escalate into a full-blown European conflict, one which would see the debut of some of the 18th century's greatest generals. Welcome to the first video in our new series on the War of the Spanish Succession.
Ooh. Sponsor? Sponsor? No sponsor, okay.
The earliest causes of the War of the Spanish Succession can be traced back over 2 centuries before it began. Throughout the late Middle Ages, Catholic Spain was primarily divided between 2 large composite kingdoms, the Crown of Castile, ruling over most of western and central Spain, and the Crown of Aragon, which controlled most of southeastern Spain in the regions of Catalonia and Barcelona, and since the early 14th century also held the crowns of the kingdoms of Naples and Sicily. In 1469, these 2 crowns were brought into dynastic union through the marriage of Isabella of Castile to Ferdinand of Aragon, bringing about a united Catholic monarchy in Spain for the first time. When Isabella died in 1504, the Castilian parliament, known as the Cortes Generales, chose her daughter, Joanna, as the new queen. Joanna was married to a Habsburg, Philip, son of Holy Roman Emperor Maximilian I and Duchess Mary of Burgundy. This didn't sit well with the aging yet still powerful Ferdinand, who had his daughter locked away in the royal palace of Tordesillas on charges of alleged insanity. Philip, now King of Castile as Philip I by way of his marriage, died in 1506 under mysterious circumstances, possibly from poisoning by his father-in-law. Ferdinand was now sole ruler over the Spanish monarchy, but when he died in 1516, the Spanish crown once again reverted to the Habsburgs through Philip and Joanna's son, Charles. When the 16-year-old Charles I ascended to the joint thrones of Aragon and Castile as King of Spain in 1516, it marked the definitive consolidation of Habsburg control over the Spanish monarchy. 3 years later, his paternal grandfather Maximilian died, and Charles succeeded him as Holy Roman Emperor. Charles V, as he was now known through his imperial title, was now arguably one of the most powerful men in all of Renaissance Europe, ruling over a dynasty that controlled the Holy Roman Empire, hereditary Habsburg lands in Bohemia, Austria and Hungary, the kingdoms of Naples and Sicily, states in northern Italy and the Low Countries, and Spain.
Alright, I'm going to talk about this real quick, because this is actually relevant to me. As someone who used to be from a Commonwealth realm. What is a Commonwealth realm? Just stay with me here. This is relevant to this. What I'm about to say here. Commonwealth realm is, it actually used to be called British Dominion. But they changed the term to Commonwealth realm because, British Dominion, it didn't really sound too fetchy with the new age of anti-imperialism and decolonization that was happening. So yeah, Commonwealth realm, basically a country that is in a personal union with England, like this. Like it's a different country, but they share the same ruler with England. And funny enough, England still holds a lot of soft power influence, kind of, sort of. It depends on how you look at it, to be honest. because Australia, Canada, New Zealand, most of the Anglophone Caribbean, the Commonwealth Caribbean, many like to call it, from the old British Caribbean. Barbados used to be a part of it until 2021, where the government completely just abolished a monarchy in the most undemocratic way possible. Now the place is like a de facto one party dictatorship state where, like, I mean, nothing hasn't really happened to the point where it's like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. But it is that is like the new normal over there in Barbados after they removed the monarchy. It's hilarious because the other day, I saw on the news they were like, "Oh, the new president of Barbados has been elected," and I'm like, nobody didn't even vote for this guy. I'm like, elected? He was just chosen there. Right? He was just chosen by the freaking party that controls everything in the government. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, the opposition party was so shit when they controlled the freaking government that everyone voted them out. And now the other party has all the seats in parliament now. So it's like they have no one to oppose any decision that they make. This is how they were able to remove the monarchy. They had no one, like no one to veto anything. They had no one to just vote no for anything because it's just all the same party. And it's just hilarious to me because it's like, oh, he was elected. Yeah, sure. Elected. Elected. I'm pretty sure these freaking people were just around a table inside Parliament. I was like, okay, who do we like here? Oh, that guy? All right, you're the new president now. Yeah, elected. Like he was just put there. But anyways, that's honestly a whole different topic. It's interesting because these personal unions with the Habsburgs seemed like it actually had more like control. The British Commonwealth realm personal union, where King Charles is the head of state of 15 other countries, um, it it's like it's kind of like, and I'm talking from the perspective of when we used to be a part of this personal union. Um, we all were kind of taught like, yeah, we're independent, but the queen, because this is back when Queen Elizabeth was still alive, is like we're independent, but the queen kind of she's still like looking over us. Like she's still like, never went anywhere. You know what I mean? Like we always had that at the back of our minds that, okay, we're our own country, we can do whatever we want, but England is still like there, like in the background, right? It's like when you like move out of your parents' house, but your parents are still like, you're doing your own thing, but if something really bad, like really like it like happens, your parent comes and gets involved, right? It's kind of like that. The only thing is that the Caribbean, really and truly, and honestly, just overall throughout these other Commonwealth realms, uh, there it's just that they were so peaceful. They were so peaceful that you never really seen England needing to get involved in anything at all. Not only that, but England had so much of its own problems that it couldn't even like focus on the Commonwealth realms at all. So you never really see something like this where like, you have all of these technically different countries, but the personal they're all in a personal union, and this royal the royal whoever's in charge or king or queen has such tight control to the point where it's just like it doesn't even feel like their countries. It's just like, yeah, they're all in just one big thing. It's kind of interesting how people remember that, but with the whole Commonwealth realm thing, it's like the complete opposite. It's like, oh yeah, King Charles, he's the king of like these 15 other countries, and that's it. Even though that actually does have a lot to it than that. Like, I'm gonna tell you the story right here, where my brother's friend from Barbados was going to England back when Barbados was still in personal union with England, because when we still had Queen Elizabeth as our queen as well. And he was in the airport, Barbados being a different country. He, when he arrived at the airport in England, he thought that he had to go through like regular customs, interestingly enough. But when he showed his Barbadian passport, they were like, no, you're in the wrong line. You're in the wrong line. We have a whole different line. No, you're like a not like a British citizen, but you're like a sub, like kind of close to that point. So they were like, no. This is like the foreign people, like the foreign people, like complete foreign people line. So they were like, no, you go through that line over there. And he went through the line, and it was it was such a smooth process, because he was basically like almost like to like the level of a local, and that was because Barbados was in a personal union with England at the time. So I don't know if it's gonna be like that anymore or not. So England actually, the British Parliament actually did pass a law when Barbados abolished the monarchy, basically just saying, okay, you guys just did that. We're gonna pass this law, just ignoring what you just did, and we're still gonna pretend like you're still in a personal union. So everything, all the privileges and stuff that you had of being a personal union, it's still there. All the stuff that was there due to the personal union, it's still there, even though they're not. Because it will kind of be a hassle to just change everything up, you know what I mean? And Barbados and Britain are still close regardless anyways. So
after ruling this vast empire for over 43 years, Charles abdicated his imperial throne and offices in 1559, dividing his dynastic holdings between his younger brother Ferdinand, who became the next Holy Roman Emperor, and Charles's son Philip, who succeeded him as King of Spain. From this point on, Habsburg Spain would operate as a politically separate entity from the Holy Roman Empire and the Habsburg monarchy in Austria, while remaining dynastically linked to both.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you see, we get that, where these countries are just like, some of them are really tied close to the crown to the point where they're just being directly controlled as one nation, sort of. But you get this where they can operate as one separate entity, right? It's kind of, yeah, it's like the whole Commonwealth realm system too. It reminds me of when Queen Elizabeth went to the UN. I forgot what she was talking about, but she decided to speak as the queen of all 16 Commonwealth realms, not just one, not just England, but she was trying to speak for all 16 Commonwealth realms, because I forgot what she was talking about, but she was trying to emphasize this. I forgot what she was talking about back then. That's why she decided to speak as the queen of all 16 realms, interestingly enough.
From the late 16th century through the mid-17th century, the powerful Spanish Empire experienced a steady decline. Her exploitation of the Americas, mining for vast amounts of gold, silver, and other valuable resources, would eventually lead to a hyperinflation of the Spanish economy. Although the Spanish army was the premier land army in Europe during this period, Spain's frequent involvement in European wars served as a continuous drain on her already devalued treasury. costly military campaigns and endeavours, such as the Spanish Armada's failed attempt to invade England in 1588, the ongoing Dutch revolt in the Netherlands, and the Portuguese War of Restoration of 1640 to 1668, gradually depleted Spain's available reserves of money, manpower, and resources. The final nail in the coffin of the Spanish Empire's decline would be the 30 Years' War from 1618 to 1648, a conflict which would continue between Spain and France until 1659, and would see the French army overtake Spain as the dominant land power in continental Europe.
Wow.
In 1668, Portugal broke her dynastic ties with Spain.
Everyone forgets how much of a beast Spain was, bro. Spain is the OG beast of Europe. OG juggernaut of Europe. Honestly, I even forget that Spain was such a beast too.
At the conclusion of the Restoration War, ending the Iberian Union between the Spanish and Portuguese monarchies, which had been in effect since 1580. Habsburg Spain's depressed economy, declining domestic population, and loss of territories and military prestige were all great blows to this once mighty empire. Abroad, however, Spain still maintained a powerful influence on global trade and markets, maintaining her vast overseas colonies and possessions in Italy, the Spanish Netherlands, the Americas, and the Philippines. Moreover, her annual treasure fleet convoys from the Americas to Cadiz still brought in vast sums of money to the Spanish crown, giving it a steady yearly income despite the depressed economy. Although her glory days were certainly behind her, Habsburg Spain would continue to play a key role in European diplomatic affairs and wars during the latter half of the 17th century. Spain's loss in prestige and territory would be France's gain. The conclusion of the Franco-Spanish War in 1659, with the Treaty of the Pyrenees, presented a new reality. Spain had declined to second-rate status, while the Kingdom of France now stood as Christian Europe's preeminent land power. Through the skillful maneuverings of Cardinal Mazarin, the chief minister to the King of France, the treaty provisions included the marriage of Spanish King Philip IV's daughter, Maria Theresa, to young King Louis XIV of France, ensuring that future Bourbon claims to the Spanish throne were strengthened. France stood poised for greatness under Louis XIV. On March 11, 1661, Cardinal Mazarin died, and later that year, Louis, now aged 22, declared that he had reached the age of majority and assumed direct control of the French state for himself. It would be under the personal rule of Louis XIV, known to history as the Sun King, that the Kingdom of France would reach its power zenith on the continent. During his reign, King Louis XIV would come to embody the very principle of an absolute monarch, holding complete and unquestionable authority over the French kingdom and his subjects. He achieved this by curtailing many of the traditional privileges of the French noble families and estates, while strengthening the powers of the crown and the royal government. He relocated his royal court to the Palace of Versailles, a traditional hunting retreat of his father's, which Louis further expanded into a massive regal estate, which reflected his regal ambitions and status as an absolute monarch. By moving the noble families to Versailles, Louis was able to maintain a close eye on the French aristocracy, ensuring their loyalty by pitting them against one another just for the chance to be bestowed with a royal title or favor by the king. Louis's ambitions were not just confined to France. Hoping to break the Habsburg hegemony over Europe, he sought to expand the kingdom's borders and assert Bourbon influence over the courts of Europe. War was Louis's politics by other means, and he saw it as an opportunity to bring glory to France through victories on the battlefield. The French army, now feared throughout Europe for its military prowess and prestige, fought numerous campaigns to fulfill the Sun King's ambitions, operating in Flanders during the War of Devolution, invading the Netherlands in the Franco-Dutch War, besieging fortress towns on the Franco-German frontier during the War of the Reunions, and fighting numerous battles and campaigns throughout Western Europe during the 9 Years' War.
Man, France is on it.
Following the Franco-Dutch War, Louis emerged as Europe's most powerful monarch, and his aggressive foreign policies gained the ire of his contemporary rulers, such as Prince William of Orange and Holy Roman Emperor Leopold I. In September 1688, Louis sent an army across the Upper Rhine to extend French influence into the Holy Roman Empire, triggering the 9 Years' War. He believed that Austria, busy fighting the Ottoman Empire in the ongoing Great Turkish War, would be unable to effectively react to his incursions. However, Louis had miscalculated the resolve of his rival monarchs to keep his aggression in check, and in 1689, the Dutch Republic, England, Austria, Spain and Savoy joined together in a coalition opposing France known as the Grand Alliance. Among the many enemies Louis had made through his wars, perhaps none would prove more tenacious than the Dutch stadtholder William of Orange. After warding off a French invasion of his country in the Franco-Dutch War, William would emerge as the champion of Protestant Europe's struggle against the ambitions of Catholic King Louis. During the winter of 1688–89, William invaded the Kingdom of England at the invitation of several disgruntled Protestant English lords who desired to see their Catholic Stuart monarch James II deposed and replaced by his Protestant daughter Mary, William's wife. James fled the British Isles for sanctuary with Louis in France, while William and Mary were proclaimed as the joint rulers of England, Scotland and Ireland in the Glorious Revolution. William and Mary would reign as equal co-monarchs until Mary's death to smallpox in 1694, leaving William as the sole ruler of the three British kingdoms, while also reigning as the Dutch stadtholder. It was William.
And we see the same logic here actually with oh god. Shit. Bro. These Doritos that I'm eating, they're spicy. Was not expecting that. But we see the same logic here with England, Scotland, and Ireland. They're not united yet. Politically. They're only united via personal union, but they're still separate entities. However, England, the English king, had such tight control over Scotland, Ireland that they were de facto part of England anyways. Although interestingly enough, the Scottish and Irish parliaments, because they were distinct legal different entities, they still had to vote to agree to join England, which they did. So that's how these countries kind of became a part of Great Britain. And this is the interesting thing about personal unions, right? This is where things can get interesting. Because it's like, okay, there are different legal entities, there are different countries that just so happen to, share the same ruler. However, if said ruler has enough influence in those countries' parliaments, then they're basically they can basically just act as one as one country, right? And that's what happened with Scotland and Ireland. And it's funny because I always would imagine this with Barbados and the other Commonwealth realms. I'm like, what if things just take a whole different turn and the monarch decided to, extend his influence in these parliaments to sway them more in his favor, to the point where he could just politically annex them into England again, right? You know what I mean? Or into Great Britain, right? Like what happened with Ireland and Scotland, because originally they were personal unions at first, and then they were just completely annexed, right? Because over time the parliament just got more influenced by the king, so he legally annexed them. It's crazy. But right now the British royal family is so docile, and this is like standard protocol now, just standard tradition to not interfere with any country's politics at all. Don't interfere with anyone's policies at all in the other Commonwealth realms. This is just standard policy because, again, imperialism bad, neocolonialism bad. So now they're just taught to never ever interfere with any country's politics, even even if it's like another Commonwealth realm, right? It's kind of insane. It's like how in Attack on Titan, the royal family just had that like, I forgot what the word I'm trying to say, like curse. I don't want to say curse, but that will, like the Reese family in Attack on Titan, which was um like never use the founding Titans power. Like never ever. Okay? Just stick to yourselves. Just stick to yourselves in your little fancy palaces or whatever, and don't ever assert authority. Never exercise your power, never use it. Because the royal family does have power. It's just that they're just taught to just never use it ever, unless you really have to. I'm talking like something like you really like something extreme has to make you use it, right? But aside from that, they're just like so ideal with it. It's mad, bro. It's honestly insane how just ideal. That's why you never really hear anything about it.
Who would take the lead in Protestant Europe's resistance to the aims of Louis's Catholic France, and it was through his efforts that the Grand Alliance was formed in December of 1689. The 9 Years' War would be the first major check against Louis's foreign ambitions. At the conclusion of the war in 1697, with the Peace of Ryswick, neither side was fully satisfied with the peace that had been.
However, I'm sorry. I have to pause again. I'm sorry. There was something that I forgot to say, and this is actually a very cool fact. Okay? Just stick with me here. When America invaded Grenada, yes, in 1983, I believe, or 1984. This is relatively recent history. A lot of people don't know about this, but this is height of the Cold War. Grenada had become communist. Grenada is right next to Barbados. And Grenada is a Commonwealth realm in a personal union with England. And this is very interesting stuff here, guys. Due to the fact that, number one, America completely ignored Grenada's sovereignty, and the entire UN voted against the invasion. America literally broke international law, but this is not what I'm talking about here. Grenada, being a Commonwealth realm, being in a personal union with England, England was pissed, really pissed off. Actually, you'd be surprised, because they were like, what the hell? This is our problem to deal with, because Grenada is within our jurisdiction. In fact, actually, the Queen of Barbados, Queen Elizabeth II at the time, due to the fact that America literally violated, their country's sovereignty, the Queen, in response to this, went to Barbados. Yeah, she went to Barbados. But due to the fact that the royal family has this strict teaching of never exercise your authority and be extremely docile and be extremely ideal, even in extreme situations like what happened, and never be political. However, this was one of those situations where it was like pushing the line, and the Queen was like, oh my God, she had to address it. So she went to Barbados and she gave a speech, because, she's the Queen of Barbados. It's her realm. She can go there whenever she wants, right? At the time it was anyways. And she gave a speech basically but she had to be so indirect with it, because she couldn't just openly say like, yo, bro, what the hell are you doing? No, she gave a speech basically saying like, okay, guys, a lot is happening, and we're like sorting stuff out. Like she couldn't even say it directly in her speech, but it was clear, like her coming to Barbados, a nearby Commonwealth realm, literally right next to Grenada, and her making that speech, which clearly was directed towards the whole invasion of Grenada, basically saying like, yeah, okay, this is insane. But she couldn't openly like condemn it or anything. It was clearly a message to America blatantly ignoring international law and violating Grenada's sovereignty and indirectly violating England's sovereignty, sort of, and completely violating the royal family's sovereignty, because Grenada is literally still a Commonwealth realm to this day and is still within the personal union within the royal family. So, and believe me, yeah, England was pissed, like really pissed about that. And funny enough, actually, they were so angry about it that Ronald Reagan had to call the Prime Minister of England at the time, Margaret Thatcher, and apologize to her for doing that. Funny enough. So a lot of people don't know that. I know that. A lot of people do not know that. But yeah, guys, invasion of Grenada. You should go learn about it if you haven't. Cold War history that nobody really talks about. I'm telling you, it's very interesting.
Gained, and both looked on it as more of a temporary truce rather than a complete cessation of hostilities. Louis had gained control over Alsace while recognizing William as the rightful King of England, but he had also lost his military gains on the east bank of the Rhine. The Grand Alliance had succeeded in halting Louis's ambitions on the Rhine. However, a new diplomatic dispute appeared to make renewed conflict inevitable as all eyes turned towards Spain. In 1665, Charles II succeeded his father, Philip IV, as King of Spain. His reign was plagued by personal health problems, a product of generations of Habsburg family inbreeding. The sickly Spanish king failed to produce an heir, and by the late 1690s, his ailing health was catching up with him, and it seemed only a matter of time before he died. The prospect of Charles's imminent death, with no heir to succeed him, brought about new diplomatic disputes regarding the question of the Spanish succession. The great powers of Europe began sweeping down on Spain like vultures, eager to pick her empire apart. The two greatest rival claimants for the Spanish throne would be the Habsburgs of Austria and the Bourbons of France. Emperor Leopold desired to maintain the Habsburgs' traditional dynastic rule over Spain, while Louis saw a chance to unite the Franco-Spanish monarchies into a Bourbon empire spanning a quarter of the globe. Whichever dynasty controlled Spain would also gain control over her expansive and wealthy colonial empire, a lucrative opportunity neither monarch could simply pass up. A war over the issue of Spanish succession seemed inevitable. But in 1698, King William presented a diplomatic solution to the question. Convening that year in The Hague, representatives of England, France, the Dutch Republic, and the Holy Roman Empire agreed on October 11, 1698, to a compromise known as the First Partition Treaty. Succeeding to the Spanish throne would be the 6-year-old Joseph Ferdinand Leopold of Bavaria, son of Maximilian II Emmanuel, Elector of Bavaria. When the boy ascended to the throne, the Spanish Empire would be divided up between France and Austria. Although it appeared that a settlement had finally been reached, hopes of peace were quickly dashed when Joseph Leopold died of smallpox on February 6, 1699. Diplomats from the great powers hastily assembled for another conference in London the next year, and on March 25, 1700, they signed the Second Partition Treaty. This new treaty cobbled together an arrangement for Archduke Charles of Austria, the youngest son of Emperor Leopold, to become the new heir to the Spanish throne. When the Spanish learned in mid-June of 1700 about the Second Partition Treaty, the sickly King Charles, still clinging to life on his deathbed in Madrid, amended his will in favor of Archduke Charles. For a second time, it appeared as though war had been averted, but once again events would overtake prospects for peace. Charles fell seriously ill once more in September 1700. By September 28th, he was no longer able to eat, and death finally seemed imminent for the frail Spanish king. The Spanish court was split between pro-Habsburg and pro-Bourbon factions, as the two parties battled for control over the king's will, with the pro-Bourbon party led by Fernandez de Portocarrero, Cardinal and Archbishop of Toledo, while the Austrian faction was led by the king's mother, Mariana of Austria. Finally, on October 2nd, Portocarrero persuaded the bedridden king to alter his will in favor of Louis XIV's grandson, Philippe, Duke of Anjou. Charles ordered all previous versions of his will destroyed, and when he finally died on November 1st, 1700, Philippe of Anjou was offered the Spanish throne at a court session in the Palace of Versailles on November 9th. With this news, Louis now faced a diplomatic dilemma, perhaps the greatest of his reign. He could either rebuke Charles II's will and uphold the Second Partition Treaty, making Archduke Charles the next King of Spain, and therefore empowering his Habsburg rivals, but also maintaining the peace in Europe. Or, alternatively, he could reject the treaty and accept King Charles's will, proclaiming Philippe of Anjou the new King of Spain and bringing the Spanish monarchy under the House of Bourbon, thus achieving his goal of creating a united Franco-Spanish Catholic Empire. However, this would certainly result in a war with England, Austria, and the Dutch Republic. Louis's senior foreign minister, Jean-Baptiste Colbert, reported that England and the Dutch desired peace in Europe, and so would not fight on the French king's side, and that the anti-French mood at the Austrian court would mean war either way. After carefully weighing both options, Louis ultimately decided he would take his chances and reject the Second Partition Treaty. At the Palace of Versailles on November 16, 1700, the Duke of Anjou was proclaimed the new King of Spain as Philip V, establishing the Bourbon dynasty in Spain and ending nearly 200 years of Habsburg Spanish rule. Observing his grandson to accept the Spanish throne, Louis stated with satisfaction, "And so the Pyrenees have ceased to exist." War was now a certainty. In our next episode, we will
And so the Pyrenees have ceased to exist. Holy shit, bruh. Reminds me of when I would do like Franco Spanish Union Hoi 4. That's honestly such a fun path. Yo, before I quit Hoi 4, because I used to play Hoi 4 a lot, but I quit the game. I uninstalled it. Because, you know, it just takes too much time and the multiplayer is just way too toxic. But, like, I was a France main. Yeah, I was actually a France main. I didn't like majors at all. Like, but France, like, when I decided to take a major, I chose France. Yeah. And my goodness, France, I don't know, man. I just had a lot of fun with freaking France in Hoi 4.
We'll explore the opening moves of the conflict as armies go on the march, lines are drawn in the sand, and all of Europe battens down for the battles to come. This is episode 1 of our member and Patreon exclusive series on the War of Spanish Succession. Our kind members and patrons got 8 episodes on this epic conflict that changed the fate of Europe.
Wow, that's crazy. If you made it all the way here to the end of the video, you like my reactions, you like what I have to say. Number 1, if you know any videos like this that you would definitely like to hear what I have to say, definitely like to see my reactions to, comment it in the comments below. Eventually, I will do it. Yeah, guys, I have a bunch of suggestions, and you know, I have them all just like tucked away and saved in a file, so that I don't forget y'all's suggestions. But it's so much that it does take time. So if you do want your suggestion to be done quicker, you could either just send a quick donation of however amount, it doesn't really matter, or you could just join the channel membership for 99 cents a month. It's only like, yeah, 99 cents a month. Your suggestions are done quicker, comments are replied to faster. You get access to the private Discord server, and a whole bunch of other perks that I'm too lazy to explain here. Make sure you like and subscribe, guys. Excellent video, excellent reaction. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.